Hey everyone, welcome back to the arena. I'm MD, joined here by Covey, as well as just another awesome special guest with an incredible story that we can't wait to get into. But first and foremost, thank you and love and appreciation to all of those that continue to show support.
What's up, everyone? How we doing? We've got another guest here. This is Dom Fusco. He is the host of the Pure Ambition podcast. He is, which we'll get into, a cardiac arrest survivor. He's also a content creator and very aligned with myself and MD around just the importance of your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual health, and just general health and wellness. Without further ado, Dom, first of all, thanks for being on the show with us. Thanks for coming on. Second of all, why don't you just share kind of a background of who is Dom and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, well, fellas, I appreciate the platform that you guys are creating, Men in the Arena. It's freaking awesome, and I am so grateful to have our paths crossed and be able to share my story. A little bit about me, I like to share more about like why I do what I do versus just like what I do. I hate that question of like, oh, you meet somebody for the first time, what do you do? Like our jobs define us. Like I hate that. So what I'm ultimately like trying to do is like I'm on a mission to help 100 million people live the happiest, healthiest, most fulfilled version of themselves. And then like that is my overall mission. That is my why. And then so everything that I do is in alignment with that goal and with that mission. So like what I do on a day-to-day basis, I'm a co-founder of a health and wellness technology startup called Upspace, which is a platform where you can find or build communities centered around health, happiness, and love. And I'm also a content creator, like you guys mentioned. So I create content on every platform, mostly Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts. I'm on YouTube. I have the podcast Pure Ambition. And again, all of this content is created to help inspire and empower people to be the happiest, healthiest version of themselves. And that is a little bit about me. I like to consider myself an athlete, even though I haven't been doing many athletic endeavors since I reclaimed my life a couple of weeks ago after the cardiac arrest. But slowly building my way back up to build my strength back, put on some of the weight that I lost after not being able to do much physical activity for almost 2 months now. But those are kind of the buckets that I pour from. That is me in a nutshell. I am pursuing the best version of myself and trying to just document my journey along the way and share as I go and hopefully help and inspire people so that they could live as the best version of themselves. Because when we're all like firing on all cylinders, we're all pursuing our passions, we're all doing meaningful work like you guys are doing in this life, it creates this trickle-down effect. And ultimately there should just be more collaboration and love in this world and less competition and ego and tearing each other down. So my main goal is to just put good out there into the world and in terms of energies and frequencies, and hopefully others catch that and can apply it to themselves.
So Dom, what do we need to know, us and then the audience, what do we need to know about your childhood in order to kind of better understand like who you are today?
That's a deep one right there, man. Wow, hitting me right in the gut to start.
You're in the arena now, man.
I'm in the arena. I love this. All right, so I am the oldest of 4 kids. I have 3 younger brothers and sisters. I have two younger brothers, 1 younger sister. So I have always naturally felt like a calling to leadership, and my parents, both of whom I love dearly, got divorced when I was in middle school, and so I was feeling this pull in both directions, right? And so it was are you on mom's side? Are you on dad's side? And in the meantime, I'm like, what? What is this? I'm 13. I'm just trying to pass algebra and hang out with my friends, right? And so there was a lot that was going on there, and so that has always made me a little bit insecure and indecisive, just because I've always felt like if I make one decision, then I'm letting if I make this decision, I'm lifting other people up, but at the same time I'm letting other people down. But one lesson that I've realized is when you don't make any decision at all, number one, you're letting yourself down, and you let everybody down.
And that is a decision in itself.
That's a decision in and of itself, to make no decision, right? And so I was like, I've always like felt this call towards leadership, but at the same time, I would blend in with the crowd because it was easier versus like stepping out of my comfort zone, like being the leader that I knew in my gut that I could be, that I knew that God wanted me to be and wants me to be. And so, you know, it finally took me transferring high schools when I was a junior in college, or a junior in high school rather, because I felt like I was like too comfortable in my environment, and it wasn't serving me the way that I wanted to, and so then I made the decision to transfer, and you know, it was the best decision I ever made. After a year, my junior year was very much just trying to fit in, and you know, I transferred to a Catholic school, and so it was very cliquey, and I was like, nah, I don't love this. Everybody's driving like these super expensive cars. I'm driving a minivan in high school, so like when I transferred, it was hard for me to like fit in there. But once I found my footing, found my crew, you know, it set me up for success, and I went on and played football in college. But I think my character has been shaped by the hardships that I've faced in life, and like having to step up to the plate in certain areas of life and really be a leader. You know, for whether it was something that my mom was going through, my dad was going through, or my brothers went through, or you know, having to show up for my friends or my family. I've always been that person that like others would lean on, and I'm like grateful for that. But and it's still that way. Sometimes it was like I would feel like I was always showing up for other people, and I couldn't show up for myself. And yeah, man, it was. I always had this weird insecurity growing up about like putting myself out there and creating and doing the things that I'm doing now. But it's like I've had to like, it's like every day you create content, every time you put something out into the world, you peel back like another layer of fear, of, you know, judgment or comparison or whatever else it may be. And I honestly think some of that, I've really recently discovered this, is like putting myself out there into the world, putting my face on social media. The reason it took me like so long to finally take that leap was like I had like a ton of acne as a kid, so I was always like very self-conscious about like what others would think about me or their perception of me, and I just always felt like I was never able to take that step and take that leap into the person that I was meant to become. And it's like, imagine just like being like whacked in the head like every day, like, yo, when are you gonna do it? When are you gonna do it? When are you gonna do it? Like, when are you gonna wake up and like do the thing that you want to do? And it took until COVID, like during the pandemic, when I was like, this is divine timing. It's now, it's a now or never thing. Like, I'm not playing football right now. Like, I'm basically doing nothing for my classes because they're all online. If there was ever a time for you to start something, it's right now. And I had no idea what I was doing. I started the podcast. I called it Days with Dom because I didn't know what to call it. And it was really just a way for me to explore my own curiosity, try to spread some light in a world of darkness. And I just got hooked on like mostly the like personal development stuff, the health and wellness stuff. That all inspired me to, or it sent me down a rabbit hole of like, hey, I have this really bad herniated disc in my back. What are the more holistic ways that I can go about healing myself? So I really went down all of those rabbit holes. And once I started seeing how it worked, I went from literally being in the darkest place I'd ever been, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, to feeling just like super empowered and like, wow, I'm able to like create something with the podcast and with content, share that to the world. Not many people were watching, but like, you know, or listening. But either way, it gave me so much joy. I was able to connect with people that are still like some of my best friends that have opened up so many doors for me. And I just look back and I'm like, this literally never would have happened if COVID never happened. So then I got my personal training certification. I got my nutrition coaching certification during that time for COVID as well, because I was like, whoa, I see what this stuff can do for my life. When I'm filling up this bucket, it pours out into all other areas of my life. And like when my health is better, then my relationships are better. You know, more specifically, like my spirituality is better. Like I just feel like a more empowered human being, and I just feel like I'm able to maximize that human experience. And it's just been a compounding effect of day in and day out, trying different things, failing, iterating, starting something up, shit, that didn't work, going in a different direction. Like the amount of like businesses that I tried to start and things that side hustles that I tried to do throughout this time period over the past couple of years before I finally realized like, whoa, I love to create content and there's a way for me to continue to do that. And then, that led to me becoming a co-founder of a startup that is going to ultimately help millions of people. My goal is billions of people radically improve their health, happiness, and love, and improve the health, happiness, and love of the human race. So, everything in my life happened exactly how it was supposed to be for a reason. Like, it was all perfect. It was all divine. Like, if I didn't have all of these, unfortunate events happen when I was a kid, like, they wouldn't have formed me into the person that I am now, and I wouldn't have been able to like overcome the things that I've had to overcome and ultimately set me on this trajectory for life. So it's like so crazy, like when you think about where you're at and you connect the dots backwards to like where you started from and like how each little action or event or occurrence happened in like exactly the way it should be to get you where you needed to be. Like I think about that like every day and it just blows my mind and it makes me like immensely grateful for this path that I'm on now. So long-winded answer, but everything that happened in my life, good and bad, happened exactly how it should be. And that's just kind of like my advice too for anybody. When you're able to like get out of that like victim mentality and recognize that like, okay, thing just happened to me. How do I feel about it? I mean, you might not know now, but like in the future, you're going to see, like this is happening for me. It's not happening to me.
And so, kind of growing up, it seems like your background, you were typically pretty healthy, right? Being a football player, you were in the weight room, you were conditioning, you were doing all of the things to be an athlete, which I'm sure you also had some sort of value around being healthy. Now it's kind of been taken to another level, right? If anyone's following your content, you're sleeping with your mouth shut, you're using red light, you're grounding yourself, you're doing a lot of stuff that now people would look at as less normal than what the football player is doing. Talk us through like how your passion, your interest, and your diving into your own health has evolved over time and like how it seemed to almost snowball from something very basic to now very what most people would call extreme.
Yeah, so it's so funny. The one, you don't have to tape your mouth shut, do red light and walk around barefoot in the grass every day to like be considered healthy. I do that because I love it and I feel great with it. But those are not the foundations, the fundamental principles of health. Like growing up, like I thought I was healthy, but I didn't realize that like eating a bagel like smothered in peanut butter and Nutella with a big glass of orange juice every day before school, like I didn't realize that wasn't healthy. Like I thought that was considered healthy. There's a lot of things like that I didn't know like weren't serving me and weren't serving my health. So I think when it comes to health, like I've continued to learn over the past couple of years, and the biggest thing that I could say is just like to develop this mentality of being a lifelong learner. And so I've been able to grow in the process over the past couple of years, but I really think there's like 4 pillars of health. There's physical, there's mental, there's spiritual, and then there's emotional health. And obviously like from my content that most people have seen, a lot of it has been taking care of my physical health. But it's all interconnected. Like all 4 of these pillars of health intertwine. So I've started to think about like what are the pillars that anybody can do that are going to really help them maximize their health and well-being. And that's things like getting good quality sleep every night. And we all hear that, but getting good quality sleep isn't just the amount of time that you spend in bed. Like you could be in bed for 8 hours, but you could eat a huge meal right before bed and then lay with like be on your phone like for the last half hour before you go to bed, and just do all these things that are stimulating the nervous system. That the reason you're waking up tired, even though you're getting quote unquote you think you're getting 8 hours of sleep, is because you're not doing the things to really like optimize your sleep. So learning about I need to stop eating a few hours before I go to bed so that I can digest, so that I can get into a more restful state. Oh, with eating, it's like I need to be prioritizing eating protein and, whole foods, more foods that, nothing in the center aisles of the grocery store. Everything's got to come from the ground, come from earth, come from nature. Eating organic things, like doing your research on okay, what's the difference between a pasture raised chicken and a normal, the cheap chicken that you see in the store, or or 100% grass fed beef versus the stuff that comes in styrofoam, and these, getting sunlight first thing in the morning, drinking electrolytes first, with water first thing in the morning, delaying your caffeine intake 90 minutes after you wake up. All these things are I nerd out about them, but they're not things that I learned in a day. It's really just been how do I be the best version of me? How do I be the healthiest version of me? And so I've really just leaned into my own curiosity. I've talked with experts in the industry on my podcast, and different friends and whatnot. And I really just think there's a few things that I do every day that really help me be the best version of me, be the healthiest version of me. And that is one, it starts in the morning, and it's having water with electrolytes first thing in the morning, and then getting 5 minutes of sunlight as soon as I can, doing some walking or some stretching right away. I read the Bible first thing in the morning, and I go for a quick walk, read my devotional, have say my gratitude and my prayers and all that. Just setting my day up for success by checking the mental health, physical health, and spiritual health box first thing in the morning. If you can do that every day, boom, you're going to radically improve the momentum of the whole rest of the day, the trajectory of the whole rest of the day. I think we get so caught up in all of the things that we see on social media and the million things that we see, other creators and people are doing, when in reality it's just fundamental things, eat real food, things that come from nature, get good sleep, strength train, do forms of cardio. There's little things that we don't need to technically we don't need to overthink that we do, including myself. So I'm doing all this crazy stuff, taping my mouth shut and doing red light and things like that. But that's been me developing over the years. That's level 3. You gotta get to level 1 first.
Yeah, and so you're stacking, brick by brick, and you're building this foundation of a healthy lifestyle. Now, Dom, we have to get to this inflection point in your life, which is, you suffered cardiac arrest. And for those unfamiliar with the story, long story short, and you can obviously go into it, is you're running, a mile and trying to beat a record time. And somebody who is laying the bricks that you're talking about and building this foundation and on this path of up and to the right, building a healthy lifestyle, for you to undergo something like that, besides just obviously the fear maybe around it and the nature of that, what else are you experiencing, maybe emotionally or mentally? Is it confusion? How can it be you after what you just described, right? Is there even second guessing now? It's wait, I was supposed to be building content, being this really healthy individual, and something like this happens to me. Is there doubt now, or is there walk us through just your story there, but also the reaction maybe immediately after?
Yeah, so it's been a reinvention of myself. It's been a literal rebirth. I tell people there was Dom before, there's pre-cardiac arrest Dom, and then there's post-cardiac arrest Dom. And I legitimately feel I've been reborn, which technically I have. I lost my pulse. I actually died on the track that day. My life was saved through CPR, and then I was on a ventilator for 26 hours or something like that before I was finally able to breathe under my own power, and they were able to take me off there, and I was going to be okay. Insane. So now it's completely changed the perspective that I have on life and the trajectory of what I'm doing with both my content and both how I'm living my life on a day-to-day basis. Beforehand I was training 3 hours a day, and my entire identity was tied up with being this fitness creator, this runner, and I was like, man, I'm hurting. Like my knee is banged up, and I have all these things that I'm dealing with, but I'm still just pushing because I felt like I had to constantly be in this sort of like performance oriented stage of life. Otherwise, like, why people aren't going to follow me, people aren't going to consume my content. I was so like, I have to post running or strength training or nutrition content, otherwise like nobody's going to follow me. And that's been where most of my growth had been as a creator. This has really forced me to really think about, hey, who is Dom Fusco? Not just the creator, but like Dom Fusco, the person. Like, what are the things that I want to accomplish in life? What is the content that I want to share? What are the things that I've like wanted to talk about that I've felt too afraid to talk about because I felt like nobody would listen, or nobody would watch, or people would unfollow me because they were only looking at me for a certain reason. But the more I've really leaned into just sharing the things that I want to, because I think they're powerful and I think they're meaningful, versus like just only sharing things that I think like will serve my audience. Like that's obviously the goal, is I want to serve my audience. I want to help as many people as I possibly can. But at the same time, if I'm not creating content from a place of like genuineness and what I think is important, like what God's putting on my heart, what he wants me to share, then I would be doing the world a disservice and I would be a hypocrite. So it's definitely been tough having to like reinvent myself and my content and my strategy and everything. But I think a challenge is always good, and it's forced me to reevaluate, hey, what do I want to get out of this life? What is my goal as a creator? And it's also allowed me to work on some different projects and try some different things that I never probably would have had I not been forced to take a step back. And it's so interesting, man, because I was literally, I still am signed up to run the California International Marathon in December, but obviously that's not going to happen. I was literally like on the phone the day before the cardiac arrest happened with my best friend who has a content agency, and I was going to like hire a videographer and a photographer, and like I was going to document this whole prep and this whole series, and we were going to do all these videos and all this content. Literally the next day, God said, man, that's great. That's cool. You have this plan. I got something else in store for you. And so obviously that all happened. And I will say, guys, I never once had this mentality of like feeling like a victim. Like everybody has been like, Dom, like, I'm so sorry this happened to you. Like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, I'm not, because I have this unique perspective now that how many people can say that they literally died and came back to life, right? Like how many people can say it's bizarre. And so I truly think like this, there's no coincidences in life. There's no coincidence as to why this happened to me. And I think because over the past couple of months, I've been surrounded by so many amazing people down here in Austin, and have been introduced to like people who are so strong in their faith. And I think that for me, because I had that, it completely changed the perspective on like how I handled this whole recovery process. Whereas I could have felt sorry for myself, be like, man, like I was supposed to run this marathon and I was on this trajectory as a creator and all these things, versus like, okay, why do I think this happened to me? Why did I think this happened for me? And what is like that next step that I need to take, or that I want to take as a creator, as a human being, as a leader in this society? And I've really come to the conclusion like, hey, I'm not just Dom Fusco, the fitness guy. Like I have so much more to offer to the world besides just fitness. Obviously, I'm going to continue to document my journey and share resources that help people. That's what I'm super passionate about. But at the same time, I'm like, there are some things that are on a deeper level that I want to share with the world and lean into. And there are these projects that like I hadn't started, that had been on my mind and had been on my heart for a long time, that I've now been able to work on. And I'm like, wow, like this literally, I wouldn't have brought this to life had this not happened.
Yeah. Dom, well, one, thank you for sharing. And I mean, so it sounds like your outlook on life, you said pre and post Dom, which I can relate to very deeply for myself as well, and kind of my self-healing journey. And it's hard to explain, but internally it feels so true. Has there been like a newfound, it sounds like you've always been a very grateful person, but is there a newfound sense of gratitude? Like, what else comes with, experience something like that? And I'm just curious, it's popped into my head randomly, but like, I'm sure you know about Damar Hamlin. After going through experiencing something very similar, was there anything you wish the average person knew, or like anything that the media maybe misportrayed? Like, I'm just curious, after going through something so similar, your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I'll answer that question in chronological order there. So first, in terms of gratitude, dude, when I wake up in the morning, like, sure, yeah, I'm tired. I don't always want to get up. Like, I'm just like the rest. I'm like everybody else. I don't like shoot up out of bed and I like levitate down the stairs and like the music starts playing and it doesn't happen. I'm still like, oh, man, I'm groggy, I'm tired. But at the same time, I go outside like right away and I'm like, man, like, wow, I can drink this water. Like, I'm so grateful that I don't have to walk like miles on end today and go like to carry clean water in a bucket, like, which many people in this world are doing. Like, I can just pour myself a glass of water, grab a lemon, put it in there, grab some electrolytes, like put on my shoes, go out for a walk, like, and I'm like, man, wow, like my hand, like I can move, I can breathe, I can like do all these things, like I can think. Like, the fact that I don't have any brain damage after like this happened to me is like amazing. So like, dude, gratitude is on another level, and like I thank God like every day that like thank you that I'm still here. I'm grateful that I'm able to still do this. I'm grateful to have like a body and a mind that allow me to just do the things that I do on a day-to-day basis, to like work with amazing people, and just everything, man. Everything is it's such a perspective shift. Like, when you almost lose everything, you have an immense amount of appreciation for just the little things, man. It's crazy. And then in terms of Damar Hamlin, dude, I mean, you have a week in the hospital of just like waiting around for doctors. Like, all I was doing was researching and trying to get answers to the questions that I had. So his was like actually somewhat similar to mine, whereas like he got hit and then he stood back up. He got like an adrenaline rush and he stood back up and then he went down. And versus somebody like, Bronny James, where he was just playing basketball and he just like collapsed, which was a lot different for me. Like, I finished the run and then I like was like huffing and puffing and I couldn't catch my breath and I was like couldn't bring my heart rate down. And after a couple minutes, my friends came over to check on me, and like I was okay, but I wasn't like really being responsive, and I was just like panting. And so they're like, I think something might be wrong. So then they had called the ambulance, and then all of a sudden, like, I went down, but then I popped right back up. And then I was like coherent, and I was talking to my buddy. I was like, Harry, like, don't call the ambulance. Like, I'm good. I don't remember any of this, by the way. Like, I don't have any recollection of any of this. And so apparently, like, I went down, and they were like, oh, shit. And then there was a firefighter that just happened to be there that day on the track, which is just like angel. Like, just doesn't make any sense. It's so crazy. It gives me chills just even thinking about it. I still need to find who that guy was, man. I still got to find the guy who saved my life through CPR. But anyway, I went down, and then I shot back up, and they were like, what? Wait, what? Like, it must have just been like adrenaline or something must have kicked in. And then after a couple moments, then I went down again, and I like went purple and like seizured out. My friend said he put his hand on me, and like my body was cold, and it was just like praying over me, and the firefighter ended up saving my life. And in the meantime, the ambulance got there quick, and they hooked me up to all the machines and got me to the ICU, put me on the ventilator, and that's where the story goes from there. But in terms of Damar Hamlin, it's very similar. I've actually listened to a lot of podcasts, like people like Peter McCullough, who actually think that they misdiagnosed his, like I can't remember what he got diagnosed with, but apparently he thinks that they misdiagnosed it because what they comiocortis is what he got diagnosed with, comiocortis. And when that happens, it's basically like you get hit really hard at like the exact beat of like, your heart has these like electrical channels, and you get hit like at the exact the odds of it are like 1 in hundreds of millions, like so unlikely, but you get hit at just a perfect time that it sends you into cardiac arrest. But what was interesting about Damar Hamlin is like he got hit, but then he got back up and he was standing there, you see him, and then he goes down. So how could it be comiocortis if like he didn't, like, a comiocortis would have been like if I punch you in the chest really hard and it just so happens at the exact time, like boom, it hits you and you're out. So
now,
that didn't happen.
How much of this do you remember?
Oh man, nothing. Like,
so I wonder, and like I hope this doesn't get taken the wrong way, but I like from an experience and like I wonder if it was, you tell me, like almost more traumatic for the people that were there and had to witness all this. Like, have you spoken with them? Like, just what is like the dialogue been?
Dude, it's so funny you say that because I've been talking about that a lot recently. Like, yeah, this obviously has been tough for me, but for my 4 friends who were there with me that day, and what they like must have had to go through. Like, I just recorded a podcast with my one friend who was there with me that day. I haven't released it yet, but just talking to him about it and saying like, hey bro, like what was that like for you when, and he like just talked about how he felt he thought I was gonna die. I was dead, and how just scary it was. And being in the hospital, he was there with me for literally the next 24 hours. He didn't leave my side, and just praying and hoping that I was gonna wake up, and him also having to like call my mom and say, hey, which she had met him luckily when she was visiting down in Austin, and she's just like, hey Dom, he said, hey Mrs. Fusco, it's Harry. And my mom, like being halfway across the country and hearing her oldest son is potentially dying, like I can't even imagine what she went through. Like, this whole experience for her, she flew down to Austin immediately that day, and she was there with me the whole week in the hospital, and then a few days after. And even still, like, she'll just like call me, and sometimes it'll be her leaving me a voicemail, and like she'll be crying, just saying how grateful she is that I'm still alive. And like it gets me emotional, even just talking about it right now. But every time I get those voicemails, I'm just like, I just get the chills, and I get goosebumps. And all the people who were there with me that day, and then my mom and my family, I can't imagine what that must have been like, because obviously, like, I don't remember anything. I just woke up and I was in the hospital with all these people around me, and I had no idea what happened. But for them to think like, is he gonna make it? I can't even imagine what that must have been like.
And you've made it.
I made it.
So, good ending to just that one story. But now, like, looking at like the chapters after that, right? And so, we've talked to cancer survivors, other maybe trauma survivors, and one of the things I'm always curious about is how that almost infiltrates your identity, right? To a lot of people, whether you care for it or not, you're Dom, the guy who survived cardiac arrest, right? And like that at a surface can be a large part of your identity. And so how have you been able to reconcile maybe losing some of the control of that identity, but also realizing, no, I'm still in control and it's up to me to maybe let this serve me into my ultimate identity. How are you starting to think about, or how have you thought about, how am I going to let this maybe even serve me to a greater sense of identity? And what is that identity? Who is Dom because of that?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I've had to really trust and surrender. That's been like these two words have just been manifesting in my life more and more, and they've been showing up every day. It's just like trust and surrender. Like life is this current, and it just flows, right? And the more you try to think about like a flowing river, like the more and more you try to resist, like the more and more it's just going to take you, and you're going to get tired. Versus like if you just surrender to that current, it's gonna take you where you need to go. And so I like when I've started to just like release control and stay in control of the things that I can control. You know, there are certain things in life that we can control, but there's other things like this in life that you just have to trust and surrender and know that it's happening all as a part of a bigger plan that God has for you, like that God has for me. So who am I to be angry or like frustrated or upset with what has happened in my life? Like I tore my ACL in college. I had a really bad back injury. Like my parents got divorced. Like I've had friends pass away. Like all of these things, and I've just like I held on to like this anger or this grudge or like, you know, why is this happening? Why is this happening? Now, like when things happen, if something unfortunate happens, it's like, oh, it just wasn't meant to be. Like it was there for a season and for a reason, and now it's not. Like for me, I was like, okay, how do I shift gears here? Like I could wallow in self-pity and think about like, man, like things were awesome. Like I was crushing it in the weight room. I was doing this, that, and the other. And now like I can't do this or I can't do that. Well, what are the things that I can focus on? Like I think of this as like I'm an outlier now. Like there's not many people who can say that they've experienced what I've experienced. You know, rarely any at all that walk this earth. And so I just use that as like, there's a reason that this happened to me. And even like the timing of when all this has happened, like I just moved to Austin. Like I just got like everything in my life. Like it's so crazy how this all aligned. And like 2 weeks before this happened, actually, like I started going to a new church, and I had a really profound experience that day. And there was this older woman who came up to me and was like, I don't know you. I don't know anything about you. I don't know your story, but I have this calling to pray over you. And I just want to let you know that God is telling me to tell you that you have an assignment. I don't know what that assignment is, but I had to tell you that. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And then the pastor came up to me too, and he was like, he was like, what's your name? I was like, I'm Dom. He's like, I felt this need to pray over you and I see you in like this armor, like fighting battles and all this stuff. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? Like I just moved to Austin. Like I don't know these people. They're praying for me to tell me that I got an assignment. Like what the heck is going on? And then 2 weeks later, like this happens, which is just wild. And my first day back at church a couple weeks later, I see Miss Joe, this older woman, and she says, Dom, I forgot to tell you that I saw like the devil was going to attack you, but I didn't tell you that. And literally she told me that like this was the devil like attacking me, trying to like take my life, and he didn't. And so like there's just all these like crazy dots and connections and like people that entered my life at certain periods, like at certain times, and things that have unfolded in the way that they have. And it's just like there's no coincidences as to why this happened. But all of this to say is like I want to use my platforms that I've been given, that I've built over the past couple of years, and leverage social media, leverage podcasts, YouTube, and speaking and events and connections, and share my story and share my testimony so that other people will go out and like live the life that they were meant to live. Like there's so many of us that live these lives where we don't pursue our passions, where you guys credit to you guys for starting something epic that's helping so many people. So many people have these dreams or these goals or these aspirations or these ambitions, and they die. They let them die. They keep shutting that voice off. They keep pushing it away. I want people, you don't have to go through a cardiac arrest, suffer a death experience, and like all this stuff for you to realize like life is so short. And at the end of the day, nothing really matters that much. We spend so much time thinking about what others are thinking about us, or have the fear of failure or judgment, or we never pursue these things that we want to do in life. And the top regret of the dying, there's these things like the top 5 regrets of the dying. The number 1 regret is that people regret living a life that like trying to please other people, or they felt like they
about that, man.
dude, it's so crazy. So like I just want to like get on top of like freaking Mount Everest with the loudest like boom speaker thing, whatever, and just echo it to the whole world. Like, you could literally die tomorrow. And like for me, all of these dreams and these goals and these things that I'm pursuing now, they would have died along with me. And so I have this phrase that came to me a couple weeks ago in the middle of the night, and it's one day out. I had no idea what that meant, but I got up, I shot out of bed. I'm like, I don't know what this means, but it's so vivid. So I wrote it down, one day out. And this one day out, like the more and more I've like meditated on it, journaled about it, workshopped it, is that you could be one day out from the last day of your life. You know, like you could be one day out from meeting the Creator. If that was the case, if you knew you were one day out, like how would you live today? In the same day of like you're one day out from a race, or you're one day out from a competition, you're going to show up and you're going to like eat the right foods, and you're going to take care of your body. You're going to you're going to spread love, you're going to spread joy, and you're going to be this the best version of you, because you're in this like preparation mode. For me, I'm like, we need to be living in that state every single day. It's like, but you could also be one day out from having a breakthrough, from meeting that business partner, meeting your future spouse, from closing that deal. Like, how would if we can change our mindsets to like, hey, one day out, boom, that just like shifts you back into like, I got to take action today. I can't let these things fall by the wayside. Like, I got to move forward, take action, build momentum.
So something I'm always interested in.
Do you know Ed Milet, by the way?
Love Ed Milet.
Yes. What is it? Do you know his thing? What he always says? It's something very similar. I can't remember. I'll have to look up after this. It's like one.
Oh, he one more or something like that.
Yeah, or one. Yeah.
The power. He wrote that book. The Power
of One More. Or something
Power
like,
of One More. Yeah, I read that book.
Reminded me kind of what you were saying. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah.
No, so both your stories are relatable in a sense that once you've had your breakthrough, or you've kind of hit this inflection point in life, there's just this like really, really strong energy to want to go and help other people, or to go top of tall mountains and preach out to other people, right?
Preach it out there.
And instead of it being like, oh, look, I've got like a newfound self, and look at all the things I can do for myself now. And instead of focusing inwardly, it just seems like there's so much energy to go and want to help others. My question is like, do you think that was innate, and is that innate in most people, and we have to find ways to get to a certain point in our own life to get to a place where we can then start to fill other people's cups? Or is that something that maybe you never felt in life, and after this moment, this inflection point in your life, all of a sudden now it's like, I just have this energy to want to help others? I'm trying to understand where that comes from, because I tend to think that like biologically humans are just kind of cruel as a species. So it's like, what is that's, and you can challenge that, by the way. I'm just so curious to understand like, where is that energy to want, and both of you all, I would love to both your perspectives on this, like where is that coming from, this like strong energy to want to help other people now?
Yeah, I think back to all the times where I've been like most fulfilled in life, and it's always been when I'm serving others. So like, I went on a mission trip when I was a senior in high school, and to Mexico, to this really poor village in Mexico, and we were just doing this like brutal work. Like, we were mixing and laying concrete and doing all this like really hard manual labor. But at the end of the day, I was like, I left that trip like and feeling so fulfilled, like, because I could just see like how grateful the people in this village were, and like the kids, they were so grateful for us, just like hanging out, playing soccer and things like that, and teaching them like American games and just sharing meals together. Like I felt so filled with just like love and joy and fulfillment. Like even when I was playing football, it was like when I was a captain my senior year of college, and I was doing everything I can to help others on the team, and when everything would come together and we'd win a game, like I just felt so like fulfilled when I was able to give back to others and creating content. Like when I get a message or a comment from somebody saying like, hey, like your content has inspired me to go and run my first half marathon, and like I'm following all your tips and I'm following all your workouts, and like you've inspired me. That is why I create every single day, and why I do what I do, and the company that I'm building is to serve others, because I think about it's we should all be trying to win together. Like it's no fun to win alone. Like it's more fun when we're all able to do it together. So it's like, why would I share, or why would I not share all these things that I'm learning in life and hold them back from other people? It's like, if I find something that works for me that's really like amplifying my life, I feel obligated to go and share that. Like I feel like I was literally created to create. And so I just think about all the times in my life where I feel like so much joy and fulfillment, and it's always been serving others. And there's times where like, okay, great, I ran my first marathon, like that was awesome, but the next day I was like, all right, what's next? Whereas like every time like I've done something like that's with like a team or with a group or with others, and like people are able to like take things away from that, I'm like, wow, like this right here, like that's super fulfilling. So I think it's just been like growing more aware and having more self-awareness as I've grown up. It's like, hey, when are the times when I feel like more fulfilled, and where are the times when I feel less fulfilled? I think about the word legacy a lot, and I had a mentor share to me my senior year in college. She said, Dom, your legacy is not what you do, it's what you give. And that changed everything for me. That changed my whole outlook on life, because in turn, like when you give, it returns back to you tenfold.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's like, for me, it's been a place very similar to you, like sustainable fulfillment. Like you can buy, you buy something nice and it feels good very temporarily, and then you're back to square one. Whereas there's always people that can be served, and it's always made me feel good in the process of doing so. And I also just relate it back to myself, and I think of like, I used to be like a very insecure, like angry, kind of like critical person, and like when I'm around those people now, like that's not people that like give me good energy. What gives me good energy is people that are healed or that are in the process of healing. And so like I want to create more of that community, people that feel comfortable to be themselves, that feel seen, that feel heard. Like that gives me a sense of fulfillment, because I know what it's like now to feel those things, to feel that way, to feel accepted, to feel supported. And I think we're all capable of doing it, but it takes work. And so that's why like I am so driven now to help other people, because it's like I want them to see. That's when you're saying like I just want to scream on Mount Everest, like do this, because everyone, it's in our power. It's just getting people to realize that. So I think that's how I would answer the question. Very similar, just a little different way of saying it.
Absolutely. No, I totally relate to that.
Dom, how has your social circle evolved across this journey? Growing up, college football has its own locker room and arena, right? And as you stepped out of your comfort zone, started to create content, you've gone through your journey. Has your circle of friends always remained the same? Has it changed drastically? And I ask that because when we talk about like fear of judgment, right, or like those voices that we push away and we don't ultimately pursue things, sometimes also what we fear is losing friends and shedding that old dead skin, if you will. Have you had to go through that? Have you had to reinvent social circles, maybe pockets of that social circle?
Totally. Yeah, I mean, I've had to, I wouldn't say like lose friends in the process, but it's like you grow a little bit further away from certain people. You gotta separate yourself from energy. People, we're all we're all energy. We all give off energy. We all give off frequencies. And like, if you find yourself around people who are putting out negative energy or sucking your energy away, then, you know, it's no hate to them, but, you know, I just don't like to spend my time with people who have negative energy, who don't have the same outlook on life as me. You know, if somebody wants to, I'm just not really interested in going out and getting, you know, drunk every weekend and hitting the bars and, you know, doing that whole scene. Like, that's not the kind of path and trajectory that I'm on. So I also believe that like energy, the energy you put out in the world like attracts the energy that like you want to receive. So by putting out like good energy into the world and just like understanding, being able to read people in a better way, like all this to say, like, yes, I've had to separate myself from certain friend groups and whatnot, and it's hard. It's a hard thing to do, but especially, you know, in your early 20s. However, you got to also, like, I moved to Austin to be in an environment of people that I knew were going to like lift me up versus bring me down. And so there are so many people here who have similar outlooks on life than me, who are on a similar path, who are pursuing similar things. So for me, I knew that I had to go down and put myself into that environment if I wanted to become this like next level version of me.
Yeah, and I think the first step is like connecting with yourself, because like I was so disconnected for so long, so I didn't even know who gave or took energy from me because I wasn't even connected to who I was. Did you have anything you want to follow up on that? Other, I'm going to go to the rapid fire.
No, go to the rapid fire. Yeah.
All right, Dom. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing your story, man, and your wisdom. You almost you got me choked up at one point, so I haven't done that in a while. So kudos to you.
Makes three of us, I guess.
The first question is just like, what's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten? Which I think you had mentioned one that you really liked, or just like a favorite quote.
Yeah, one that the first thing that pops, it's so hard to think of these things sometimes, but the first one that pops into my head was, you know, when things happen to you, you either go through it or you grow through it. And that was like one thing that my mentor told me during COVID, and that really stuck with me and has stuck with me since then.
Well, I love that one. I'm gonna write that one down. Next one. If you could have dinner with anyone in the world, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Ooh. Probably Matthew McConaughey, to be honest with you.
I like that. That's the second person. You're not the first person that's been on the show to say that.
So, I find him so fascinating. I've listened to his book like 3 times, and I just love his outlook on life. And one of my bucket list items is to have a beer with Matthew McConaughey. I know I just talked about like not drinking and whatnot, but like I feel like I don't know why. I was just like, you know what? Okay, this popped in my head. Like Matthew McConaughey has lived just such an incredible life, and his outlook, his perspective, and just like the things that he's pursuing as a human. There's probably a lot of people on this list, but he's the first one on there for me.
Green Lights is a great book.
And
then lastly, what do you like to do in your free time? What kind of hobbies do you have?
So I mean, I spend a lot of time creating. I love podcasting, YouTube, all that kind of stuff, and it's kind of my job now. So I don't know if it's not exactly a hobby, I guess, anymore. But I love to snowboard. Obviously, this is my first winter not in the Northeast, so we'll have to make some trips out to Colorado or somewhere to snowboard. But I love to cook, things like that. I love to hike. Yeah, things like that, outdoor stuff mostly.
Nice, man. Well, thank you so much again for sharing your story, man. We appreciate it. We're going to sign off.
Guys, thank you so much. This was amazing.